It's mid-afternoon, and your backyard is doing what it always does. A sparrow lands on the fence. A chickadee dips toward the feeder, grabs a seed, and lifts off again. Somewhere behind the hedge, you hear this call repeat short, bright, almost musical. You've probably heard it 1,000 times, but honestly, you've never once stopped to actually listen to it. Then, for no obvious reason, everything just stops. Not gradually, either, all at once. The chatter cuts off mid-note, wings freeze mid-motion. For 3, 4, maybe 5 seconds, the yard holds a silence so complete it feels wrong. It's like walking into a room where everyone stops talking the exact second you step through the door. You glance around, nothing. No cat, no hawk, no movement at all. Just total stillness and this faint, unsettling feeling that something just happened. But you weren't invited to understand what it was, so you go back inside. But something in you knows that silence wasn't just nothing. You glance once more through the glass before turning away, sort of half expecting an explanation to just appear. But it doesn't. The fence line looks exactly like it did a minute ago. Sunlit, still, completely ordinary. And yet, that ordinariness feels a bit borrowed now. Like a stage set after the actors have quietly slipped off through a door you didn't notice. See, it was a message, and you just completely missed it. Most people assume bird sounds are just background noise, pleasant, meaningless, kind of like the audio equivalent of wallpaper. Rethink. A chirp is just a chirp. A tweet is a tweet. If anything, we assume birds sing because they're happy or because it's a nice morning. We think that's just what birds do. But here's what most people don't realize. Researchers who have spent years recording and analyzing wild bird vocalizations have found something that quietly overturns all of that. Those sounds aren't random at all. They're structured. And this is where it gets interesting. Different calls carry completely different, specific meanings. It's not just a vague mood, it's actual detailed information. A predator on the ground gets one specific signal. A predator in the air gets an entirely different one. Heck, even the specific type of hawk or owl can completely change the pitch and rhythm of the warning. This is the part people miss. Your backyard has a whole language running through it all day, every single day. You've been standing right inside it, hearing every word and understanding absolutely none of it. That silence you just witnessed wasn't birds being quiet. It was actually them being incredibly loud, just in the one dialect you never learned. And here's what most people don't realize. This dialect isn't hidden away in some remote jungle. It's hidden right in front of us by sheer familiarity. It's like walking past the same street sign every single day and never actually reading what it says. But this is where it gets really interesting. Ornithologists studying mixed species flocks, those little groups where chickadees, nuthatches, and titmice all forage together, have documented something pretty remarkable. These birds don't just warn their own kind, they actually warn each other completely across species lines. It's like this shared surveillance network stitched together entirely out of sound. A chickadee doesn't even need to see a hawk to broadcast a warning. It just needs to hear the alarm call of a titmouse 3 trees away, translate it instantly, and pass the warning along. Within seconds, that alert ripples across an entire block of yards, including yours, without a single bird in your line of sight ever looking panicked. So, that sudden silence in your backyard this afternoon, it probably didn't even start in your yard. It might have begun 2 or 3 houses down, carried on a wavelength we were never built to notice, arriving at your fence line as nothing more than an abrupt, eerie quiet. Think about that for a second. The exact moment you experienced as a total absence like nothing is happening. Nothing to see was, from the bird's perspective, the exact opposite. It was the tail end of a massive announcement that had already crossed half the neighborhood before it ever reached you. Once you understand that these calls actually carry specific categories, the sounds start to separate into something like a code. Like a sharp, rapid chip, chip, chip burst usually signals an immediate ground threat, something moving low, close, and fast honestly, usually a stalking neighborhood cat. But then you have this single, thin, high-pitched note that's almost too faint to even pick up. That usually means there's something in the air. And this is the part people miss. That sound is deliberately hard to locate. Evolution basically engineered its pitch so a hawk can't triangulate where it's coming from. So you're not failing to hear a warning. You're hearing a warning that was specifically designed so only the intended audience can pinpoint the source. Then there's the call that matters most. The one almost nobody clocks. The mobbing call. It's louder, way more chaotic, and you'll hear multiple birds joining in. They aren't fleeing here, they're actually converging, totally harassing a predator that's been spotted and surrounded by noise. Maybe you've heard a sudden burst of agitated, overlapping bird chatter before and just assumed it was a petty squabble over territory. But you were likely watching a coordinated defensive assault playing out in real time, right outside your window. Each of these signals tells you exactly what's out there right now, and it's usually a lot closer to your house than you'd think. The information has been there the entire time. You just didn't know it was information. Even the actual pauses between those calls carry weight. You know, a long gap right after a big burst of mobbing usually means the predator has backed off, or it's just gone totally still, watching to see if all that noise will finally fade out. But a short, repeated gap-like call, silence, at this steady ticking rhythm, that usually means the threat hasn't moved an inch. The birds are basically keeping tabs on it in real time. It's like a radar ping refreshing every few seconds. But honestly, knowing the code is only half the picture. The other half is what that code is actually picking up on. And this is where it stops being just a charming nature fact and starts being genuinely useful to you. Urban wildlife surveys, the ones using those motion-triggered cameras, have shown that residential blocks host a surprising number of predators moving through during low-visibility hours or those quiet midday lulls. We're talking Cooper's hawks slipping between yards, outdoor cats patrolling fence lines, or maybe a fox threading along a drainage ditch right at the edge of your property. As homeowners, we rarely see any of it directly. These animals are incredibly efficient, cautious, and they mostly move around at night or during twilight hours. A fox can cross a backyard in under 4 seconds, low to the ground, using shadows the way a diver uses water. It barely even disturbs the surface it's moving through. But the birds see it, constantly. Their alarm system isn't just reacting to some imagined danger, it's reacting to alive senses of exactly what is moving through your property. It's updated in real time, broadcast at a frequency most of us just tune out without ever realizing we're doing it. This means that sudden silence in your yard from earlier, it wasn't just some isolated event, it was a status update. Something was out there, something the birds clocked, categorized, and warned each other about in the exact seconds before you looked up from your coffee and saw absolutely nothing. And this is where the pattern starts to widen, because it isn't just about a single moment of quiet on one random afternoon. It's about the fact that this warning system operates continuously, all day, every single day, whether you're paying attention or not. Which means, if you think about it, your yard has effectively been broadcasting a live threat report the entire time you've lived there. The birds that visit your feeder regularly aren't just eating. They're gathering intelligence, cross-referencing it with the intelligence of a dozen other species nearby, and adjusting their behavior second by second based on conclusions you have absolutely no access to. When they suddenly cluster near dense cover instead of hanging out on the open lawn, that's a deliberate decision. When a normally bold cardinal becomes hesitant at the feeder for 2 straight days, that's data. When the volume of ambient chatter in your yard drops by half for a whole week, something in the surrounding threat landscape has genuinely shifted. Maybe a new predator is establishing territory, or an old one is growing bolder. Most of us read these shifts, if we even notice them at all, as just a mood. We think, oh, the birds seem a bit quieter lately, or they've been acting kind of weird. But mood isn't the right frame here. This is a functioning early warning network operating at a scale and sensitivity no home security system could ever match. And it's been running in your backyard this whole time, completely free and completely ignored. Think about how much money people spend on motion sensor lights, trail cameras, or apps that ping your phone the second something crosses the driveway. All of it is aimed at catching just a fraction of what a chickadee registers instinctively before breakfast without even being asked. Here's the part that reframes everything, though. This alarm system isn't only detecting predators of birds, it's detecting changes in the environment itself, anything unfamiliar, anything that alters the normal rhythm of movement and shadow around your home. Which means, in a very real sense, those birds have been monitoring your property more closely, more continuously, and more accurately than you ever have. Every time you stepped outside without noticing a shift in the chatter, or every time a delivery truck idled at the curb without a single alarm call rippling through the yard, the birds were quietly confirming something too. They were confirming that you, specifically, register as safe, familiar, not a threat worth broadcasting. That too is information, and it's been running in the background of every ordinary day you've spent in that yard. That eerie silence from earlier wasn't just birds hiding from something. It was birds telling you something in the only language available to them, aimed at an audience that, until this moment, never even knew it was being spoken to. So the next time your yard goes totally quiet for no visible reason, don't just walk back inside. Stand still. Really listen to what's underneath that silence. The absence actually has a shape if you know how to read it. Notice which direction the very last call came from. Notice how long the quiet holds before the first cautious chirp tests the air again, like a scout checking to see if it's safe to speak. Because that ordinary afternoon, the one that felt like absolutely nothing, was never actually empty. It was full of information, moving invisibly across your fence line, second by second, in a language that was there long before you moved in and will keep speaking, whether or not you ever learn to listen. You don't need any special equipment to start understanding it either. You just need to stop treating the sound as background noise and start treating it as a report. What's the strangest way your backyard birds have ever gone silent on you?